In a city bursting with color, rhythm, and constant movement, there lived a man whose brush could speak. His name carried weight, whispered across galleries, and echoed in the homes of art collectors from continents apart. His paintings, bold yet tender, were adored by thousands. Each stroke he laid on canvas told a story, breathed life, touched hearts. But despite the accolades and fame, something quiet began to stir inside him, a question, persistent and sharp. Did they love his art, or did they just love the idea of praising a famous man? This thought began to haunt him. It followed him into the quiet of his studio, lingered behind the compliments of friends, echoed after every applause. One morning, unable to bear the doubt anymore, he made a decision. He would find out the truth, even if it shattered him. Taking what he believed was one of his finest works, he walked to a busy street corner, propped it on an easel for all to see, and placed a small note below it. "If you find any mistake in this painting, please mark it." When he returned that evening, his heart sank. The painting he had poured his soul into was covered in marks, red circles, harsh lines, brutal slashes, all pointing at so-called flaws. Every passerby had become a critic. The canvas that once shined with brilliance now looked like a battlefield. He stood there, frozen, not because he believed the critiques, but because their sheer volume overwhelmed him. What had gone so wrong? He took the painting home, defeated, and locked it away. Days turned into weeks. He stopped painting. The passion that once kept him alive now felt like a burden. He avoided conversations, dodged invitations, and shrank from the very world that once celebrated him. One afternoon, while wandering aimlessly through the quiet outskirts of the city, he crossed paths with a monk known for his timeless wisdom. The monk noticed the sadness in his eyes, the slouch in his posture, and asked gently what weighed so heavily on his soul. The painter, with a voice cracked by silence, shared everything. From his doubt to the brutal markings, he let it all pour out. The monk listened, his eyes never leaving the painter's face. Then, after a thoughtful pause, he said, "I understand. But let us try a different approach. Take another painting, equally dear to you, and place it in the same spot. But this time, change the message. Write, 'If you find any mistake in this painting, please correct it.'" Curious but skeptical, the painter did as told. The next day, he placed a new painting on the same busy street and watched from a distance. As the day passed, he noticed people pause, stare. Some even scratched their heads, but no one made a single correction. Not one. The painting remained untouched. That evening, he returned with the monk and asked, "Why didn't anyone fix it?" The monk smiled gently. "Because, my friend, finding fault is easy. Fixing something requires understanding, skill, and intention. Most people are eager to point out flaws, not because they know better, but because it makes them feel important. The problem isn't your art. It never was. The problem is expecting depth from shallow minds." In that moment, the painter felt something shift. A weight lifted. The haze around his spirit began to clear. He realized that he had handed his worth to people who neither understood nor valued what he did. And worse, he had let their ignorance silence his gift. He returned to his studio, not with vengeance, but with clarity. His brush found its rhythm again, not for the approval of the masses, but for the joy that had once made him fall in love with colors, with canvas, with creation. He painted for the child who still lived in him, the one who found magic in every stroke. That story is more than just about a painter. It's about all of us. In whatever we do, art, work, relationships, there will always be voices trying to pull us down. Some do it out of envy, some because they feel threatened, and some simply because they have nothing meaningful to add but cannot bear to be silent. The world is filled with critics who've never built, advisors who've never dared, and judges who've never tried. They are loud, persistent, and everywhere. If you begin shaping your path based on their noise, you'll soon forget where you were even heading. You'll lose the joy that comes from doing something just because it lights up your soul. True peace begins the moment you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. The monk knew that wisdom wasn't about silencing critics. It was about not letting them into your heart. And that's a lesson the painter finally understood. If you've ever doubted your own worth because of a harsh word or a cold glance, remember this story. No one else gets to define your value. The ones who see your worth will encourage, not tear down. They'll offer a hand, not a finger. And the rest? They're just noise, background static in the grand symphony of your life. When you believe in yourself truly and deeply, no storm can shake your roots. Your path becomes clearer, your stride more confident. The critics may still be there, but their voices lose their power. You begin to see them for what they are, mirrors of their own insecurity, not judges of your reality. Keep going. Paint your masterpiece, build your dream, speak your truth, not for validation, but for the pure joy of creating something that only you can. The world needs your light, your color, your story. And when the noise rises again, and it will, just smile and remember, real creators don't need applause, they just need purpose. And so the painter continued his journey, not as a man seeking praise, but as an artist embracing his purpose. He no longer looked for validation in fleeting comments or silent nods. He had learned that the real beauty of his work didn't lie in being perfect by someone else's standards, but in being honest, authentic, and fearless in expression. And just like that, the joy returned, not in loud applause, but in the quiet satisfaction of staying true to himself. Because in the end, it's not about who claps for you. It's about who you become when you no longer need them to.